Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special little podcast that we've put together alongside Perfect Support. And joining me in the studio today is Lauren Holmes from Perfect Support. Good to meet you, Lauren.
And you. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, listen, for anyone meeting you for the first time that doesn't know the story of Perfect Support, let's start there. What prompted Perfect Support to be born? What's the starting point?
Oh, where do I start? So we was established in 2019 by the director, Joe Best. I think it came from, he had a late diagnosis of dyslexia. So I think that triggered quite a few things for him, and, you know, the support that he was getting and he required, well, that he wasn't getting really. So I think that's why Perfect Support started, just to help individuals who are obviously struggling with things like dyslexia, mental health, neurodivergence, grief, loss and change, just everything in general, really. So that started back in 2019. And I think we have always been under like an umbrella company. So we've always done what we do, which we'll get into, under another company's name, if you will. So I think for us now, it's time to sort of like reintroduce ourselves, because what we do is so great. We know we make a massive difference. And I think where we're at now, we want to take credit for the people's lives where we are actually changing, because we do literally change lives. It's crazy to say, but I know it's so cliche, but we really do. So it started with just one strategy coach that we had. And now we've got, like 16 across the country, all got, master's degrees, and really all love what they do. We're all in this for a reason. We all share the same passion. And I think that's sort of the important thing. I always think you've got to love what you do. You've got to have that drive. You've got to have that love and passion for it. And I think we all do here at Perfect Support. So yeah, it's just more of a sort of like a reintroduction of Perfect Support. Some people everyone won't know who we are. But like I said, we have been around for like 6 years. Excuse me, for like 6 years. So, but just in the background. But it's now time to go forward.
They might not know who you are, but they might have felt the impact of what you do, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. We've worked with major organisations. It's massive. So yeah, it's just people don't know it's us behind the scenes, which is sad. Yeah.
Well, let's start to talk about some of the things that you do in a bit more detail. But I love stories, so I'm gonna start with some stories, and then maybe you can kind of use those as a kind of picking up point.
Yeah.
Okay. When you talked about the dyslexia thing, I remember doing my level 3 in dyslexia with the BDA when I was a workplace assessor, and I thought it was incredibly necessary, because you can't necessarily help somebody that's struggling with anxiety at work or even manifesting physical illness, etc., if actually the underlying cause is that they're struggling to do what they're doing, right? Because they're dyslexic, or because they're dyscalculic, or because they've got dyspraxia, or any of those kind of cognitive processing issues, etc., that people have. And it's interesting you say about a late diagnosis, because the number of times that I saw somebody with a late diagnosis, or even had to signpost them for diagnosis, including, I can remember a very interesting case where I went to see somebody that was in their 70s who was still a practicing barrister, and we discovered that they were dyslexic. A very typical example is I went to see a senior manager at Network Rail, and he'd started off his career many, many years ago, almost as a boy, on the railways, but everything had been practical. As he kind of grew into the role and the responsibility, he would have been trackside, he would have been looking at situations being great at visualization, could understand what was going wrong, was very good orator at being able to tell people what to do to kind of put it right. And over the years, suddenly his role had shifted into now being about writing reports, doing exams, all of that sort of thing, which he would then struggle with.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that you, in what you do, you see a lot of that actually perhaps where someone comes into a role and the strengths that enable them to get to a certain position, suddenly, as that role changes, they're left stranded.
Do you know what? You're so true in what you're saying. It is so accurate. We have clients, that'll come to us and they'll be displaying, let me try and give you an example. So someone comes to us and they've just gone from working at home to then now they're having to work in an office, but they've always worked in an office, but because they've worked from home for a short period of time and having to transition back into the office, they can find that quite daunting. But working in an office is all they've ever known. That transition to try and get them back into the office can be so overwhelming for people. And that can be for many of reasons. So routine. So it could be someone, who is autistic and they've got so set on the routine of being at home. It could be, like, say, anxiety. It could be, there's a number of things. But a lot of, managers, senior managers will just presume they just want to work from home. They just can't be bothered coming into the office. So I think it's the importance of delving into actually what the cause is and what's making them not want to come into the office. There is always underlying issues, I think, with everyone in the workplace. It's just trying to sort of get to the root of the cause and helping them really and building them strategies to help them, confidently come into work or, it is so overwhelming. And I think COVID was like a massive thing with that because so many people had worked from home. And, I think with like ADHD, autism, it's so big at the minute. It's been big, I really think, since COVID actually hit. And it's people had not realised until they'd actually started working from home to then transition back into the office and how overwhelming and stuff that would be. So there's so many different cases that obviously we do, like the coaches, obviously not me personally, but the coaches can think, right, we're going to meet a client. It's because they're suffering with dyslexia. Okay. And then when they start speaking to that client, they're actually triggering and thinking, oh, actually, no, this is like autism or, this sounds like ADHD or, they've just lost someone close to them. It could be grief, oh, this lady's just had a divorce. So there's so many different areas. People always think that they know straight away what's wrong with them or why they're struggling and things like that. But until you actually, reach out and get the correct support from obviously the correct business and things, you actually don't know. You really, really don't know. So what you might think, or what your senior manager might say, oh, I think you're struggling with a bit of anxiety, aren't you? Just got, just slightly anxious. Let's just get you some strategy coaching, get you back into work. And then it delves deeper into the fact that no. This lady's just had a divorce. It's not just her anxiety at all. She's had a massive change in her life. It's huge. It's impacted her hugely. Or this man's just had a recent diagnosis of ADHD. It's such a minefield when you start going and actually understanding.
And I think putting it into even bigger context is that it's not even about neurodiversity or neurodivergence. It's not even about mental health. It's not about specific learning difficulties. It's not about physical conditions or disability. It's not even about necessarily all of the things that people might be happy to look at and say, okay, these people need extra support and put to one side. Ultimately, it's about the human condition as well. And I think it's one thing that organizations have struggled with in the past is that what they've done is they've tried to almost pinpoint something that's wrong with somebody and then look for adjustment, whereas actually the proactive way of looking at it is that I've got a group of people here and all of them to some extent will need some form of help. to be the best that they can be. So if we are getting in help to help with people, we really need that to be, and it might be a bit of an overused word, but we really need that to be holistic. We can't try and tick box our way through people, because people don't fit into a tick box, do they?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think that's where the issue is now with organizations, with businesses, even your larger businesses and your smaller businesses. They do just go through a tick box. Well, I've checked this and I've checked that and I've checked this. And I'm thinking, that's crazy, because you've not done anything other than probably in a month's time, in 2 months' time, when they put a massive grievance in because you've not looked after their well-being. You're now at a tribunal. You're having to pay thousands of pounds out. Like, for me, the well-being in general, okay, so outside of work, inside of work, is so important. But in the workplace, I think even to protect your own business, as well as protect your employees that, you know, at the face of your company, the reason why your company is thriving, it is so important to look after them, you know, and to listen to them, listen to their struggles, you know, see if there's anything you can do in-house. If not, you know, if you actually value what they're doing, then you should try and keep them on board. You know, you should try and get them the help that they need. You know, you've got, let's say, for instance, got Joe Bloggs. He keeps coming in late, but he's never been late before in his life. You know, he's got some absences, like, you know, and this has never happened before. There has to be a reason behind why things change, or people's actions change, and it's just trying to get to the bottom of it. And you wouldn't just help these people in work as well. It would be their life that you would help them with as well. And I think that's important as well, because in work, out work, well-being is just should always be looked after by yourself and by others and by people that are included in your life. I think as well, for me, obviously this is massive for me, what we do here. I've got a little girl, so she is severely autistic, ADHD. You know, she's amazing. She puts me through my paces, and she's, you know, I will never ever change her for the world. But coming here has really opened my eyes, as if to say, okay, so in a few years' time, when she's ready to get a job, is there going to be that support there? You know, when I'm not here, is she going to have that support? Because right now I'm thinking, no, she's not, because people aren't aware. Mm-hmm. They are not aware of, you know, the impacts that this does have on people's day-to-day lives, and how you can really support your employees. And honestly, it's just a minefield. As well with like the grief and loss thing, I'll never forget when I had my little girl. You know, you always imagine that you're going to do this with them, you know, their first holiday, their first Christmas. You know, I'm 6 years down the line and my daughter still has no clue what Christmas is. You know, she doesn't know when her birthday is. And for me, I was grieving. I grieved for a long, long time about this. And it really did get to me. And it was like a form of grief, because I had dreamed of my child, you know, doing all these things with her, creating all these wonderful memories. And that just wasn't how life was going to be. Don't get me wrong, we have the best memories now, and everything is, you know, it's amazing. Like that, I wouldn't change it. But I think when people as well hear the word grief, it is just like, you know, it's a loss, but it's really, really not. You can be grieving for so many different, you know, reasons. And I think as well with, or neurodivergent especially, there is, you know, a lot of children being diagnosed with it now, you know, early signs and things like that. Are we thinking about them parents? You know, them parents that are coming into work every day, you know, they've got struggles because they're trying to get their head around their child, you know, is neurodivergent. Like, are we protecting them? Are we helping them? Are we, you know, giving them the correct support? Because firsthand, it is overwhelming. It is soul destroying. And like when obviously everything was going on with my little girl, my work was great. You know, my workplace was great. I could not fault them one bit. But I know there is workplaces out there that would not care, or would just think, oh, whatever. You know, it is what it is, sort of thing. Not my issue, if you will. But it's just not the way it should be. It really, really isn't. The world needs to change, you know.
But it's hard, and you know, I talk about this a lot. It's hard, and it's hard for leaders. It's hard for managers, right? Because the world has changed, and if we think about the journey of that change in my lifetime, things have changed from a time when you went to work and you accepted the status quo and you did what you were told.
Yeah.
But that's not work now.
No.
Right. And from a making money, running a business point of view, when life was like that, things were easier for management, right?
Yeah.
It's not to say that people were actually happy or that there was satisfaction there, but it was easier in as much as, like, you know, you either wanted your job or not.
Yeah.
Right. And now we live in a world where people, and I think COVID has pushed this on, right, expedited this. And the reason it's expedited it is because we suddenly, as a human race, had a massive wake up to the fact that actually there's more to life. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And as soon as you have those moments in time where people go, but really it is, you know, being a slave to the rhythm, you know, waking up and going to work every day and just, you know, doing what I'm told to do. Is that right in this day and age? Or actually, I like the flexibility of being able to do this and working a bit from home and or hybrid working or whatever. It makes people think, well, what do I really want out of work? So I think the big challenge for organizations now is work working. Right?
Well, yeah, when you say it like that.
And I think that the industry of well-being has in the past been part of its own problem, because I feel like to some extent a lot of the support systems have been around tick boxes or have been very product and sales based. Right? So there's a lot of product and a lot of sales involved in that. And I feel like that's actually kind of caused some of the problem in terms of now trying to break that down, because people are like, well, hang on a minute, are you just trying to sell me something? You know, are you just trying to get a load of product in here to put a bandage on it? But I feel like you've got the right name, you know, perfect support. And perfect support should start with really good communication. And you've got to have experts in your business who can understand the level of that communication.
Absolutely.
That is hard. I mean, I remember going to see a chap. I was the fourth assessor in to see this person, and they'd been offered a chair and they'd been offered a desk and they'd been offered, and nothing seemed to be working. And I got to the nub of the problem, and the nub of the problem was actually that this guy was actually living on the streets.
Oh, right. I was not expecting that.
And nobody had got to that. Right. And you can't deal with, you can't deal with the physical manifestation of why that's now, you know, causing him pain or whatever. You can't deal with the fact that he looks disheveled every morning and seems to be lazy or whatever. And all of those surface level things, unless you start to deal with the actual problem that's the deep rooted problem. And as you say, you know, if you have people grieving at work in whatever form grieving is, and this is going to get worse in the future as people are needing to deal with things like care, right? You know, what if your mum and dad suddenly get ill and someone needs to look after them, they can't afford to go in a care home. All these things have an impact on productivity. They have an impact on someone's ability to function at work and in life. And these are hard conversations. So you need experts to be able to have those conversations for you.
Yeah. I couldn't, you know, we have coaches. I couldn't do what they do. What they do is amazing. And you have to be, you know, that type of person to be able to do that, because I think it would just pull on my heartstrings and I'd be like, oh no. But our coaches, you know, they're accredited, they've gone to uni, they've got masters, they've got degrees. They haven't just taken a half a day course and now they're currently, you know, that's it. I can give you some coping strategies to help you maintain in work. They are, that, you know, they really, really have worked. And like I said, been to uni, got degrees, masters, and this is what they do as a job. You know, they've also got life experience in this. You know, some of them have worked in special educational needs schools, you know, been like worked in the care for people with learning disabilities. So I think that's what makes Perfect Support stand out as well. And like I said, we had a massive organisation who used us as an umbrella company. You know, we was working with massive organisations, you know. So I think for a big organisation to use us, they knew how great we were. Okay, so I think for us now, we need to have that confidence in ourselves, and no, do you know what? We want to take, you know, credit for this now. You know, I want Joe to be able to see what he's built and, you know, not be under an umbrella company. I want him to take credit for what he has built from literally himself and one coach. And obviously what he's built already is massive. We want to take it that step further. You know, I know so many people, and you'll think it's so cliche that people will sit here and say, you know, we care, we just want to get you the correct support and blah, blah. But we genuinely do, you know, or we would have just forgot about Perfect Support when we stopped with the umbrella and just thought, let's just walk away. But we know there's so many people out there that require the correct support, may I just add, you know, not someone who's just here for the money or anything like that. The correct support that you should, as a company, give your employee. So that's why we've continued it, and that's why we are sort of like reintroducing ourselves. And yeah, that's it really. That's what we're trying to do.
What's your massive transformational purpose? What are you trying to achieve in the world, would you say? I think
first and foremost, we obviously want to give our own clients. We want to have great partnerships with these clients. You know, we want to work in partner with them. And we want to make a difference for every aspect of their business, you know, whether that's to help them, help their employees, you know, because I can guarantee you now, if you have half a day training day with us, or you have someone who's struggling with ADHD or mental health or anything like that, and you actually invest in them and invest in us, we would take your business to the next step, because everyone would be on board. And everyone would sort of know the vision of what you want, and everyone would know you care as well. You would, because I think when you work for a business, so let's take Joe, for example, obviously the owner, director, my boss, I know he cares so much about the business, but I also know he cares about every single one of his employees. You know, he's approachable. You can go to him with anything, and he looks after every single one of us equally. And it's so rare. It is so rare. But that is how it should be, you know, and that's just how it isn't. The amount of times I ring, you know, and I'm ringing up businesses and trying to get in touch with their HR department, see what, you know, what wellbeing they have in place. And the person answering the phone has no idea who to direct me to. So, and then I'm thinking, well, do you even know that the support's there for you? You know, is this lady at the end of the phone struggling with something and has no clue that there's support there for her? So I think our mission is, first and foremost, to just spread awareness of workplace wellbeing obviously in general, but workplace wellbeing. You know, there is companies out there that will help, you know, that genuinely do care, you know, and that's just what we want to do. We ultimately want to help people remain in work, because, you know, people know what it's like when you don't have a job, or, you know, you're getting sacked because you're always late. Let's just not sack that person. Let's try and get to the bottom of why they're being late. You know, he's been great for you for 4 years. You can't just give him his, you know, hand him his P45 and say on your way just because he started being late. It's, people are just so quick to be like, oh, they're an issue, let's get them out. They're an issue, let's get them out. It just doesn't, it shouldn't work like that. And it doesn't work like that. There is people out there that can navigate, you know, direct, give strategies and things like that. But back in the day, there was no such thing as ADHD. There was no such thing as autism, mental health, no such thing. It was just, you know, pull your socks up, get to work sort of thing. They're stuck. They're stuck there. They are still there. They're not moving with the time. You know, they have no idea what these people are struggling with, because all they know and all they've ever known is you just come to work and you do your job, bottom line. Whereas for me, I think people need to know this isn't, you know, we're not living in that day and age anymore. Come to the reality, get with like in the reality of what is happening right now in your workplace. And yeah, it's honestly, I could go on and on and on about it. It's so.
It's possibly not even the oldest a generation of people. It tends to be people my age that are the problem, right? I'm gonna blame me.
We're blaming you, Graham.
I'm going to blame my generation. I feel like people hit like middle age and they become very kind of blinkered about approach, and almost feel like, because I feel like part of it is looking back at things with rose tinted glasses as well, and maybe thinking that things were better in the past. They weren't better. It's just that, but I do think it's more difficult to manage people now. I think it's harder, only because we've all woken up as society. And that means that managers, leaders need to learn to lead, need to learn to manage now. So, I mean, that's another whole piece about getting rid of accidental management. But also, you can't be an expert in everything. And that's why people need what you're doing, because ultimately, there's only so far you can go.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah. I guess the training piece there is helping those people. It's an awareness thing, really. It's helping those people to understand and identify when they need to get help in.
You've hit the nail on the head. You're the manager, okay, but you're not the expert. That's when to know to get the right, the correct professional in to help. Because employment law, everything, you could say something wrong, you could do something wrong, you couldn't take the right action, and then it ultimately falls back on your head then. And, you're not doing anything wrong. Like, I think a lot of HR, senior roles, they think they should solve the problem. They're in this position because they should solve this problem and it shouldn't have to go to anyone else. But that just isn't the case. It really isn't the case, especially the day and age we live in. It's not, but that's how people think. No. I'm the manager. I'm the boss. I need to deal with this. I don't need anyone outside noise or anyone else to come in and help me. Sometimes people are just too proud and they don't want to say, okay, I'll take some help. Let the professionals do the work. I would never, like I've just said with the coaching, I could never sit here and, with a client and do some coaching because I wouldn't know what to do. I'm not the professional, so I would pass that over. But it's just some people just too proud to think they just never want to do it.
So if someone's watching this, they're a manager, a leader of an organization, C-suite or whatever, and they're going, this all sounds great, but I'm worried about the cost, right?
Yeah.
I'm worried about that aspect of it. What's the entry point? Does it have to be that you're going to bring this in and just immediately spread this throughout the whole organization, or can you deal with individual cases? What are the kind of entry points for you coming in?
So I think where we would come in is if you've had an access to work assessment, or occupational health have come into your work and they have put on your report that you require, you would benefit from some coaching strategies. So with that, they will always recommend someone on the report. And people, it's like, I've heard this thing on the radio at the minute, like, you don't have to go to the insurer that recommends blah, blah, blah. So it's the same with strategy coaching. They'll always recommend a big company that you should go to, who you'll probably pay double, triple the price, okay, if you went with them. So I think if you actually stop and think, coaching strategy, I've heard some perfect support, and you would just reach out to us. Obviously, we would have a conversation with yourself. Well, I wouldn't, the coach would, your employee, and we would just get the ball rolling. But in terms of pricing and things like that, we are the least expensive company in the country, without a shadow of a doubt, and that's because we think, you shouldn't have to pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds to get the correct support. People don't have to be making this mega money to get the support. And that's where it comes with us. We genuinely want to care people because the price does reflect off that. So yeah, I would say, if you're reading a report and you've seen about coaching strategies, then come to us, have a conversation with us first and foremost. You don't have to go to who they're recommended on that report. Again, with access to work assessments, they give you some options. You don't necessarily have to choose them. You can, with anything, Google, have a look around, see who's getting the most reviews, see who's, got the most trained coaches, who haven't just done half a day course, they're accredited, they have masters, they have degrees. And the reason why they do this is because they genuinely want to help. And it's not just, it's not just a 9-to-5 job for our coaches anyway. They work morning, noon and night, all different time zones and things. So it isn't just, we're available 24/7, which is.
Oh, yeah, I know. Been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt. I used to, I could turn up at someone's office at 7 o'clock in the morning. I could be there at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
It literally, because, people work all hours. Sometimes I work nights, sometimes I work days. That's just the way it was.
I think as well, it's the same with anything. Obviously, if you hear of a big brand, people just think you should go with them big brands, big companies. You hear the big names, think, oh, we should just use them. But why? What is the reason? It's all about supporting small businesses, if you will. I think it's just somebody giving someone else, not even just perfect support, just in general, a small organization, that chance, and knowing that you would probably get better care, better attention. Everything would be 10 times better using a smaller company than another company who's overloaded, doesn't actually need your work, but they're just going to take it anyway because they're not going to say no, are they? They love the money sort of things, and they're not going to say no. So I think giving smaller companies that opportunity, you would get a far better outcome.
Well, and the only thing that someone would be concerned about there is whether you can scale. But if you've already proven the fact that you've been doing that work at scale with large national companies, then
so like the major organizations like we've worked with is like your Lloyd, HSBC, the police, ITV, BAE. So these aren't just small businesses, they're massive global businesses. So we've been there, and we've made such a difference to hundreds, thousands probably, of their not just work life, I would say, because it always just seems to spill over into their personal life as well. But some of the testimonies, feedbacks we've had are great. There's never really been one feedback where it's been like it's not been beneficial. We've not got anything out of it or anything like that. It's always been positive. Obviously, I can't tell you a full story because obviously what the coaches say in their sessions is obviously private and confidential, but just from like feedback that we see, and obviously what you guys could see on our website, client testimonials, it's always been positive. We've never ever had one person who'd been like, nah, no, not for me, that. I didn't like it. She didn't help me.
I think that's because it's personal. I feel like, whenever you make something personal and actually, as I say, human-centered, then it has an impact. It's when you take it away from that it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of finish by talking about who is it that you want to talk to. I mean, I imagine you want to talk to people in HR because they're kind of sitting in the middle of quite often dealing with the human element of a business. But I also think, having talked to you further today as well, I think you probably want to be talking to people that are impacting culture change in business as well, because I feel at the point where someone is realizing that they're getting it wrong and they need to get it right with their people, that's a good time to actually be talking to you.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Do you know, and anyone that does need help, any company that thinks, even I feel like if someone is watching this now and they're thinking, this lady could help, blah, 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 or this might be good for this, please just reach out, because it's never a waste of my time. And even just to give you an insight of a bit of information, then that's great. Or even if you're just curious or you just want to know a little bit more information, then please do reach out. So we have a few partnerships at the minute. We work with ergonomic companies because having physical but also mental, in the workplace is important. So I think that partners really well. DSE assessors, we work alongside them but even when we first got these partnerships, they had no clue who he was or what we did or why coaching strategies are actually, beneficial for them, because they just see physical aspects of it, or, you know, how their mouse is or anything like that. So I think it was an eye-opener to them as well. And like I said, most companies I speak to have no idea. There's just no awareness at all. And it makes me think, oh my God, so if you was ever struggling and I'm ringing you, you would have no clue. So
I'll just break that down for anybody that's in the audience that doesn't know what DSE means. It's display screen equipment. It's one of the most ancient terms, really, because I don't think it really kind of encapsulates everything that goes on with kind of what would be deemed a sort of ergonomics type assessment nowadays. But it's true. It's often a starting point for people because it works around sort of HSE guidelines. Which is Health and Safety Executive. There's another acronym. But because it works around that, and there's kind of some legislation around that as well, people will often start with physically what might be going on in someone's environment that is causing them issues. And that's kind of understandable. But so often, and I can say that as someone that worked the field for like 15 years, so often it's just a starting point. It's just an opening of a window. And I have to say that a lot of people who are great at the ergonomics piece aren't great at the rest of it. And that's just because they haven't necessarily pan trained in those particular areas. And, you know, that's great. If you're creating that opportunity to maintain the relationships you have got, if you're watching this out now and you've got a relationship with someone that's supplying ergonomic equipment to you, etc., and it's a great relationship, but they're not covering the non-physical side of support for your people, we don't want to take away from the relationship you've got there. What we'd like to do is we'd like to talk to you and them about how this could work for the benefit of everybody involved in that process.
Exactly.
So do reach out.
Please do.
Lauren, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
I feel it's lovely when people can come to share something about their business, starting from the point of a personal story. And it's very, very clear that there's a lot of personal stories in Perfect Support, which make the purpose of the business resonate. And so I would just ask that if you've been watching this over the last 40 odd minutes or so, just reach out and ask Lauren about her story. Just ask where it all started. Have a conversation about your story as well, because stories are where it starts, right? Stories build relationship builds trust. And that's a great place to start with anything. You know, just have a conversation. It doesn't cost you anything to have a conversation, as Lauren said. And, you know, let's hope, having put your story out there today and being vulnerable with that, thanks, Lauren, that actually some of you out there might actually now want to speak with Lauren. So if you want to know more about Perfect Support, we will be putting the links for you to find the website and have a conversation with Lauren in and around this as you are watching it on whichever platform you're watching it on. Thank you, Lauren.
Oh, thank you, Graham. It's been lovely. Thank you, everyone listening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to everybody listening to this. And we hope you have a lovely, pleasant day or night, whatever time you are listening to this. We will be back soon with some more content for you. But until then, from Lauren and myself, bye for now.
Bye.